Today, we're going to dive into one of the most powerful chapters in the entire Bible, Galatians Chapter 4. Seriously, this thing is packed. It's all about one of the biggest shifts you can imagine, the move from living under a system of law to living in a relationship of pure grace. This is huge. It changes everything about how we relate to God.
Okay, just imagine this for a second. What if you were the heir to an enormous fortune? I mean, you legally owned everything, but you were forced to live like a slave, with no freedom, no access to your riches. It's a crazy paradox, right? Well, that is the exact picture the Apostle Paul paints to describe what life was like for us before Jesus showed up, and that stunning idea is right at the heart of what we're going to unpack today.
So let's start where Paul starts, with the problem. This strange situation of being an heir, but an heir who's stuck in chains.
Now, to really get this, you have to understand the world Paul was living in. He's tapping into a common Roman custom. A young boy, even if he was the heir to a massive estate, was basically no different than a slave while he was a minor. He was under the strict control of guardians and managers until a specific day, the day his father decided he was mature enough. That's the picture Paul uses for our spiritual childhood under the law.
Paul uses this Greek word, stoicheia. Sounds a little academic, but what it means is simple. It's the elementary principles, the basic ABCs of how the world works. You know, that default setting we all have in our heads. You get what you deserve. It's a performance-based system. You have to earn your way.
And here's the kicker. Living by that rule, even if it's inside a religious system, is a form of slavery. It puts you on this endless treadmill of trying to be good enough, always wondering if you've done enough, always fearing you'll mess up. That, Paul says, was our state of bondage.
But, and this is a big but, that state of bondage had an expiration date. This brings us to the great turning point of the whole story.
Paul says that when the fullness of the time had come, God acted. You got to catch that. This wasn't random. This wasn't a plan B. The arrival of Jesus was a precisely timed, divinely orchestrated intervention into human history, planned for the moment of absolute maximum impact.
And this slide just shows you how perfect that timing really was. I mean, look at this. You had the Pax Romana, the Roman peace, which meant for the first time in ages you could travel safely across the known world on this incredible network of roads. There was a universal language, Koine Greek, so the message could spread like wildfire without getting lost in translation. And maybe most important, there was a deep spiritual hunger. The old pagan gods were coming up empty, and people were desperately searching for meaning. On top of all that, for anyone watching the scriptures, the prophetic clock, especially from the book of Daniel, was ticking down to zero. The stage was absolutely perfectly set.
So the stage is set, the problem is clear, and now we get to the solution. This incredible, radical transformation from a slave living in fear to a son living in total freedom.
And Paul breaks this down into two mind-blowing steps. Step 1, redemption. The idea here is literally about a slave market. Jesus entered our world, lived under the same system of law we were enslaved to, and paid the price to buy us our freedom. But God didn't just stop there. He didn't just set us free and say, good luck out there. No, He did something even more astounding in step 2, adoption. He didn't just make us ex-slaves, He brought us into His own family and made us His children, with every single right and privilege that comes with that.
And this is the sound of that new relationship. This isn't the cry of a slave to a master. It's the intimate, heartfelt cry of a child who knows, without a doubt, that they belong, that they are loved.
You know, the word Abba is so unbelievably personal. It was the Aramaic word a little toddler would use for their dad. The closest thing we have in English is something like daddy or papa. Just think about that for a second. That one word signals a complete revolution, a move from a relationship based on distant fear to one of close, intimate love. So what's the bottom line here? It's a complete identity switch. You are no longer a slave trying to earn your place. You are a son. You are a daughter. And because you are a child in the family, that makes you an heir. Not an heir to some earthly fortune, but an heir of God Himself. It's just incredible. And to really drive this point home, Paul pulls out one last, absolutely brilliant illustration from the Old Testament. It's an allegory, a tale of two sons that really represents two totally different ways of life.
He takes us all the way back to Abraham, and we've got his two sons. On one hand, you have Ishmael. He was the son of Hagar, the slave woman. His birth was the result of human effort, of Abraham and Sarah trying to help God out and make the promise happen in their own strength. On the other hand, you have Isaac. He was the son of Sarah, the free woman, and his birth was a flat-out miracle,
a direct result of God's supernatural promise.
And this table just lays out the stark contrast between the two. The way of Ishmael, that's the way of human effort, and it always leads to bondage and slavery. It's connected to an earthly system of law. The way of Isaac, that's the way of the promise. It's born from a divine miracle. It leads to freedom and grace, and it's connected to a heavenly reality. One way inherits nothing, the other inherits everything.
So, okay, it's a fascinating ancient family drama. But what on earth does it mean for us right here, right now? This is where Paul brings it all home and explains the inheritance that belongs to us.
The Bible tells us that Ishmael mocked and made fun of Isaac. And Paul says, see, that same pattern is still happening today. Those who are trying to relate to God through their own efforts, through legalism, they will always have a problem with those who are living freely in the grace of God. It's an unavoidable spiritual clash.
So what's the solution to this conflict? Paul doesn't pull any punches. He quotes Scripture directly. The two systems are completely incompatible. In the original story, Hagar and Ishmael had to be sent away because their way of life was a direct threat to Isaac, the true heir of the promise.
And this is the main point. The one thing you have to get from all of this. You can't mix and match. You can't live with one foot in the world of law and earning your way, and the other foot in the world of grace. They are like oil and water. They are fundamentally different ways of relating to God, and you have to choose one. You're either a slave trying to earn your keep or a son enjoying a free inheritance.
And so that leaves us with this final, very personal question. Which reality are you actually living in? Which family do you belong to? Are you operating under the principles of a slave, always striving, always trying to earn your place? Or have you finally embraced the incredible, liberating freedom of being a son or a daughter, living securely in the promise of God's amazing grace?